I'm Jessica, 32, and last December I discovered I wasn't invited to my family's Christmas dinner through my cousin's Instagram story. As if that exclusion wasn't painful enough, 1 week later I received an email from my parents containing a $6,100 invoice for my brother Tyler's Hawaiian vacation. The subject line read, "Your family contribution." The same family that didn't consider me family enough for Christmas dinner suddenly wanted thousands from my nursing salary. Before I share how this shocking situation unfolded, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt like the forgotten child in your family. Growing up in Fairfield, Connecticut, I was raised in what outsiders would consider an idyllic upper-middle-class family. Our colonial-style home with its manicured lawn and carefully curated interior was the perfect backdrop for my parents, Margaret and Richard Walker, to host their frequent dinner parties with other successful professionals. My mother, with her perfectly highlighted hair and country club membership, had always been obsessed with appearances and status. My father, more reserved but equally status-conscious, was a corporate attorney who expected nothing less than excellence from his children. From an early age, it was clear that my brother Tyler and I were held to different standards. Tyler, 3 years my senior, seemed naturally inclined toward the path my parents had mapped out for him. He was studious, athletic, and socially adept, the perfect son to showcase at their social gatherings. I, on the other hand, was more introspective, creative, and drawn to helping others in a hands-on way rather than pursuing prestige. Jessica, darling, medicine or law, those are the respectable choices, my mother would say whenever I expressed interest in other career paths. When I ultimately decided to become a nurse instead of a doctor, the disappointment was palpable. Nurses are wonderful, of course, my mother had said with a tight smile at my college graduation, but you had the grades for medical school. Such a waste of potential. Meanwhile, Tyler followed their preferred path perfectly. He attended an Ivy League university, then medical school, eventually becoming a successful orthopedic surgeon. Each step of his journey was celebrated lavishly. Parties for his medical school acceptance, his residency placement, his first attending position. My parents' Facebook pages were shrines to Tyler's accomplishments, while my nursing school graduation warranted only a modest dinner at an Italian chain restaurant. 4 years ago, I made the decision to move to Boston, partly for a position at a prestigious children's hospital, but mostly to establish some independence from my family's constant judgment. I found a charming one-bedroom apartment in Brookline, made wonderful friends at work, and eventually met Nathan, a kind and supportive architectural engineer who loved me unconditionally. Nathan noticed the family dynamic immediately. After our first Thanksgiving together with my family, he asked on the drive home, "Do they always talk over you like that?" I hadn't even noticed how my mother had interrupted me repeatedly to ask Tyler about his patients, or how my father had dismissed my stories about the children I'd helped at the hospital. "Tyler just got that research grant," I had explained, making excuses as I'd done my whole life. "They're excited for him." "They should be excited for both of you," Nathan had replied quietly. The pattern continued at every family gathering. When Tyler and his wife Melissa announced they were expecting their first child, my parents threw an extravagant gender reveal party. When I was promoted to charge nurse, my mother's response was, "That's nice, dear. Did you hear Tyler's buying a house in Westport?" Still, I tried to maintain a relationship with my family. I called weekly, sent thoughtful gifts for birthdays and anniversaries, and made the 3-hour drive to Connecticut for most holidays. I kept believing that if I just tried harder, eventually they would see me, really see me, and be proud of who I was, not disappointed in who I wasn't. Last Easter had been particularly difficult. I'd overheard my mother telling her friends, "Tyler's the one who really made something of himself. Jessica's just, well, she's happy, and I suppose that's what matters." The condescension in her tone had stung, but I'd swallowed the hurt as I always did. Nathan had watched me struggle with this dynamic for the 3 years we'd been together. "You deserve better," he would say gently after particularly painful interactions. "You don't have to keep putting yourself through this." But they were my family. Despite everything, I loved them, and kept hoping for their approval, their love, their recognition that I too had value. It was this hope that made what happened last Christmas all the more devastating. December 15th started like any ordinary Tuesday. I was sipping coffee before my shift at Boston Children's Hospital when I decided to check Instagram. As I scrolled, a story posted by my cousin Sophia caught my attention. It showed a beautifully decorated dining room table with the caption, "Can't wait for Walker family Christmas next week." The table was set for 8 people: my parents, Tyler, Melissa, their 2 children, and my aunt and uncle. My coffee cup froze midway to my lips. Christmas was 10 days away, and I hadn't received any invitation. Surely it was an oversight? Maybe my mother had texted the wrong number, or an email had gone to spam. I immediately checked all my messages and email folders. Nothing. With shaking hands, I called Nathan, who was already at his office. "They're having Christmas dinner without me," I said, my voice barely steady. Sophia posted about it. "There's no place for me at the table." Literally.
What?
"Are you sure?" Nathan's concern was evident. "Maybe it's just an advanced setup for something else?" The caption specifically said, "Walker family Christmas." I replied, tears forming. "I'm a Walker too, at least last I checked." "Call your mom," Nathan suggested. "There has to be some explanation." But I couldn't bring myself to make that call yet. First, I needed more information. I texted Sophia casually, asking what her plans were for the holidays. Her response was innocent enough. The usual. Christmas Eve at my parents' house, then Christmas Day at Aunt Margaret and Uncle Richard's. "You're coming, right?" My heart sank further. "Actually, I haven't heard any details yet," I replied. Sophia's response made everything worse. "Oh, well, maybe they're planning something else with you? I know the dining room table only fits 8 with the extension and with Tyler's kids now." There it was. I was being excluded because of space constraints. Or, at least, that was the excuse. My brother's family took priority, and I was the expendable one. That evening, Nathan found me curled up on our couch, still in my scrubs from work. I'd been unable to focus all day, nearly mixing up medications, something I'd never done before. My supervisor had noticed my distress and suggested I take the rest of my shift off. "Remember last Christmas?" I asked Nathan as he sat beside me. How my mother kept talking about how complete the family felt with the grandchildren there. I should have seen this coming. Last year's Christmas had indeed been telling. Tyler's children, Emma and Liam, had been the center of attention, understandably so, as they were adorable at 3 years and 6 months old. But my mother's comments had been revealing. Now that Tyler has given us grandchildren, Christmas feels like Christmas again. She'd said this directly to me, with a pointed look that clearly communicated her expectation that I should be producing grandchildren too, despite knowing that Nathan and I weren't ready yet. "You need to confront them," Nathan said firmly. "This isn't a misunderstanding or oversight. They made a deliberate choice to exclude you. Maybe they're planning something else with us?" I suggested weakly, still trying to find an explanation that wouldn't hurt so much. "Maybe they want to come to Boston to see us instead?" "Has your mother mentioned anything like that?" "No," I admitted. During our last phone conversation, my mother had been vague about holiday plans, saying only that things will be busy with the little ones. "I've seen this pattern before, Jess," Nathan said gently. "You make excuses for them. They continue to hurt you, and nothing changes. At some point, you need to address it directly." He was right, of course. I'd spent years trying to rationalize their behavior, always giving them the benefit of the doubt, always assuming the problem must be with me. But excluding me from Christmas dinner while including every other family member? There was no reasonable explanation for that. Still, the thought of confrontation made my stomach churn. Previous attempts had never gone well. When I tried to discuss feeling overlooked at family gatherings, my mother had dismissed it as sensitivity, and my father had changed the subject entirely. When I'd mentioned the disparity between their support of Tyler's education versus mine, they'd reminded me that Tyler had a more expensive career path and that I should be grateful for what I received. But this was different. This was a clear, Undeniable exclusion from a major family holiday. If I didn't stand up for myself now, when would I? You're right, I told Nathan, straightening my shoulders. I need to call them. The next evening, after a day spent rehearsing what I would say, I finally dialed my parents' number. My hands were trembling so badly that Nathan had to press the call button for me. He sat beside me on our couch, his presence providing the strength I needed. My mother answered on the fourth ring. Jessica, what a surprise. We were just discussing the holiday menu. The casual tone, as if nothing was wrong, made my throat tighten. That's actually why I'm calling, Mom. I saw Sophia's Instagram post about Christmas dinner at your house. Oh. Her voice remained light, unconcerned. Yes. The table set for 8. Everyone but me. There was a slight pause before my mother replied, her voice now carrying that familiar dismissive tone. Well, you know how small our dining room is, Jessica. With Tyler's children now, we simply don't have space for everyone. I thought you'd understand. Understand that I'm being excluded from family Christmas? My voice cracked despite my attempts to stay composed. You could have at least told me directly instead of letting me find out through social media. Don't be so dramatic, Jessica. It's just dinner. You know how Tyler's children get overtired with too much stimulation. We need to keep things simple this year. The excuse was so transparent it was insulting. Our dining room had hosted 20 people for my father's birthday just months earlier. This simple dinner she was planning included my aunt and uncle, but not her own daughter. If space is really the issue, you could have come up with any number of solutions, I countered. A kid's table, renting a bigger table, having dinner in shifts, or even hosting at a restaurant. Instead, you chose to exclude me completely. Jessica, you're being unreasonable, my mother sighed. You don't have children to consider. Tyler's family needs the stability of tradition. I am part of this family too, Mom. Of course you are, dear. She replied in that patronizing tone I'd grown to dread. But you're an adult without the responsibilities Tyler has. You can be flexible. I heard my father's voice in the background asking who was calling. My mother's muffled response, "It's just Jessica having one of her moments," sent a wave of hurt through me. Then my father was on the phone. Jessica, what's this about? Your mother's trying to finalize the holiday arrangements. Arrangements that don't include me, Dad. I just found out I'm not invited to Christmas. My father's sigh was heavy with disappointment. Jessica, at some point you need to stop making everything about you. Tyler has a demanding career and 2 small children. Your mother is trying to make the holidays special for them. And what about making it special for me? Am I not part of this family anymore? Of course you are, he said impatiently. But frankly, Jessica, you've chosen a different path. Tyler followed our advice, established himself properly, married well, and has given us grandchildren. Your life choices. He paused, and I could almost see him shaking his head. Well, they've been your choices. But they don't align with the family traditions we value. The brutal honesty stunned me into silence. In one sentence, my father had confirmed what I'd suspected for years. My worth in the family was diminished because I hadn't followed their prescribed path. I see. I finally managed, tears streaming down my face. Thank you for making that perfectly clear. Now you're being overly sensitive again, my father replied, his tone hardening. This is exactly why these conversations are so difficult. You take everything so personally. This is personal. I finally raised my voice. You're excluding your daughter from Christmas while including everyone else in the family. How am I supposed to take that? Perhaps when you've matured a bit more, you'll understand that family dynamics evolve. Tyler's children are the future of this family. And I'm what? The past? Disposable. That's enough, Jessica, my father said firmly. Your mother doesn't need this stress during the holidays. Call us when you're feeling more reasonable. The line went dead. They had hung up on me. I sat in stunned silence, the phone still in my hand. Nathan gently took it from me and pulled me into his arms as I finally broke down completely. They don't want me. I sobbed against his shoulder. They've never wanted me as I am. Then it's their loss, Nathan said fiercely. Because who you are is extraordinary. 4 hours that night, I cycled through crying, anger, and numbness. Nathan stayed by my side, making tea, offering comfort, and reassuring me that I wasn't overreacting. What they're doing is emotional manipulation, he said as we lay in bed, sleep eluding both of us. They want you to feel like you're the problem, so they don't have to examine their own behavior. It's worked for 32 years, I replied bitterly. I've always believed there was something wrong with me, something lacking. There isn't, Nathan said firmly, and it's time to stop letting them make you feel that way. As painful as that phone call had been, it provided a strange clarity. For the first time, I saw my family dynamic without the filter of hope and wishful thinking. My parents had made their priorities clear, and I wasn't among them. The question now was how to move forward with that knowledge. I think I need some distance from them, I said quietly. I can't keep doing this to myself. Nathan nodded. I think that's wise. You deserve better than this, Jess. And sometimes the only way people value something is when they realize it might be lost. Little did I know that my parents had one more shock in store, one that would make their Christmas exclusion seem almost minor in comparison. Exactly 1 week after the devastating phone call with my parents, I was checking my email during my lunch break when I noticed a message from my father with a subject line, "Family financial matters, urgent." Given our last interaction, I was hesitant to open it, but curiosity won out. What I found inside left me literally breathless. Attached to the email was a formal invoice, created in accounting software, with my name listed as the recipient. The total amount due, $6,100. The line items were as follows: family contribution toward Tyler's Hawaii vacation, $5,000 administrative fee for vacation planning, $350 your portion of family gift, luxury watch $750 the payment terms indicated, due immediately with my father's bank account details listed at the bottom. The email text was equally stunning. Jessica, as you know, Tyler has been under tremendous strain this past year with his surgical practice expanding and the responsibilities of fatherhood. Your mother and I have arranged a much-needed 2-week vacation to Hawaii for Tyler, Melissa, and the children. As this is a family gift, all adult family members are contributing. Your portion comes to $6,100 as detailed in the attached invoice. Please arrange payment as soon as possible as we've already put down the deposits. Dad, I stared at my phone screen, convinced this must be some bizarre joke. But my father didn't joke, especially not about money. I scrolled down to see if there was any acknowledgement of our Christmas conversation, any hint of reconciliation or explanation. There was none. Just a formal signature line with my father's credentials and contact information. The audacity was almost impressive. They hadn't invited me to Christmas dinner because I wasn't family enough to include, but I was family enough to bill for Tyler's luxury vacation. I forwarded the email to Nathan with no comment other than, "Is this real life?" His response came within minutes. "Call me now." When I reached him, Nathan was furious. "This has to be the most entitled thing I've ever seen. They exclude you from Christmas, but expect you to pay thousands for your brother's vacation? Absolutely not. I don't even have $6,100 in my savings," I said, still in shock. "Even if I wanted to pay it, which I don't, I literally can't." "Don't even consider it," Nathan said firmly. "This is beyond inappropriate." What made the situation even more absurd was that Tyler was far wealthier than I was. His surgeon salary was easily triple my nursing income. Just 2 months earlier, he and Melissa had purchased a $1.2 million house in one of Connecticut's most exclusive neighborhoods, a purchase my parents had proudly shared on Facebook, tagging me specifically as if to ensure I saw it. That evening, I received a text from my mother. "Dad says you haven't responded to the email about Tyler's vacation contribution. Please don't create drama over this. Everyone is contributing equally." I wondered who everyone was. Were my aunt and uncle also being charged? Somehow, I doubted it. I needed perspective beyond Nathan, who was understandably biased in my favor. So I called my closest friend, Rachel, who who had known me since nursing school and had met my family several times. They did what? Rachel exclaimed when I explained the situation. Jessica, that's not normal family behavior. That's exploitation. Maybe I'm missing something, I said, still trying to make sense of it all. Maybe this is how families operate when there's a significant income disparity. No, it absolutely is not, Rachel said firmly. My brother makes twice what I do, and our parents would never expect me to fund his vacations. In fact, it's usually the other way around. The more financially secure family members help the others if needed. The email said Tyler needs this vacation because he's under strain from his job and parenting, I said. As if I'm not also working hard and dealing with stress. You literally save children's lives, Rachel pointed out. And you do it for a fraction of what Tyler makes as a surgeon. If anyone deserves a funded vacation, it's you. The part that really gets me is that they said it's a family gift, but I'm not family enough to be invited to Christmas dinner. I said, the hurt still fresh. That's because this isn't about family, Rachel replied. It's about control and their twisted priorities. Jessica, I've been telling you for years that your parents' treatment of you is toxic. This invoice is just the most blatant example yet. So what do? You don't pay a single penny, Rachel said emphatically. And honestly, I think it's time to consider cutting ties completely. They're not going to change, and you're just setting yourself up for more pain if you keep hoping they will. Rachel's advice was blunt but loving. And deep down, I knew she was right. This invoice wasn't an isolated incident. It was the culmination of a lifetime of being treated as less valuable than my brother. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the times I'd made excuses for my parents' behavior, all the times I'd blamed myself for not being good enough to earn their approval. It was a painful pattern that had shaped my entire life. And it was time for it to stop. The invoice acted like a catalyst, forcing me to re-examine my entire upbringing through a new lens. Memories I'd minimized or rationalized now appeared in stark relief, revealing a consistent pattern of favoritism toward Tyler. I remembered my high school graduation, where my parents had given Tyler a brand new BMW as a graduation gift 3 years earlier, saying he needed reliable transportation for college. When my graduation came around, I received a set of luggage. You'll need this for college visits, my mother had said. The subtext was clear. Tyler was given tools to succeed, while I was given tools to go away. The financial disparities continued into our college years. My parents had paid for Tyler's entire Ivy League education, tuition, housing, meal plans, and even spending money. For me, they covered tuition at a state school but insisted I take out loans for housing and expenses, claiming they'd already stretched their education budget for Tyler. I graduated with $32,000 in student loan debt that I was still paying off, while Tyler started his career debt-free. Even our achievements were valued differently. When Tyler was accepted to medical school, my parents threw an elaborate party with their friends and colleagues. When I was accepted to nursing school, my mother had said, "That's nice, dear. Did you consider applying to medical school instead?" My father hadn't commented at all. At family gatherings, Tyler's preferences dictated everything from the menu to the activities. If Tyler wanted ham instead of turkey for Thanksgiving, we had ham. If Tyler couldn't attend a family vacation because of his schedule, the vacation was rescheduled. My schedule, by contrast, was considered flexible and unimportant. I called my therapist, Dr. Andrea Mitchell, and scheduled an emergency session. I'd been seeing her occasionally for anxiety, but had never fully explored my family dynamics with her. "The invoice isn't the problem," Dr. Mitchell said after I'd explained everything. "It's just a symptom of a much larger issue. What you're describing is a classic golden child/scapegoat dynamic." "I've never thought of it in those terms," I admitted. "From what you've shared, your parents have consistently placed higher value on your brother, his choices, his needs, his family. This isn't something you imagined or exaggerated. It's a real phenomenon in family systems." Dr. Mitchell helped me see that my parents' behavior wasn't my fault, nor was it something I could change through my own actions. "You've been trying to earn love that should have been freely given," she explained. But their capacity to love you equally has nothing to do with your worthiness and everything to do with their own limitations. With this new understanding, I began reaching out to extended family members who might have noticed the same patterns. My Aunt Linda, my mother's sister, had always been kind to me, slipping me extra gifts at Christmas and showing genuine interest in my nursing career. "I've wanted to say something for years," Aunt Linda confessed when I called her. "The way Margaret and Richard treat you compared to Tyler has always bothered me. I just didn't want to create family conflict." "So you've seen it too?" "I'm not imagining it." "Oh, Jessica, no. You're not imagining anything. I remember when you won that state science fair in high school, such an incredible achievement, and your parents barely acknowledged it because it was the same week Tyler got into Princeton. I wanted to shake them." Hearing this external validation was both painful and liberating. For years, I'd wondered if I was overreacting, being too sensitive, or misinterpreting my parents' actions. Now I had confirmation from multiple sources that the disparity in treatment was real and noticeable. I even received unexpected validation from my cousin Sophia, who texted me after hearing about the Christmas dinner fallout. "I always thought it was weird how Uncle Richard and Aunt Margaret treated you, and Tyler so differently. Mom and Dad have talked about it for years. I'm sorry I didn't realize the Christmas dinner was excluding you. I assumed you had other plans." The most revealing conversation came from an unexpected source. My brother's wife, Melissa, called me out of the blue. "Tyler doesn't know I'm calling," she began awkwardly. "But I wanted to ask if it's true that Richard sent you an invoice for our Hawaii trip." "It's true," I confirmed. "Did you know about this?" "Absolutely not." Melissa sounded genuinely horrified. "Tyler and I had no idea they were asking family members to contribute. Richard told us it was their gift to us." "Jessica, I'm so sorry. This is completely inappropriate." While Melissa and I had never been close, her call provided crucial information. Tyler might not be directly involved in my parents' manipulative behavior. He benefited from it, certainly, but he might not be actively participating in it. In my next therapy session, Dr. Mitchell helped me process these revelations. "What you're experiencing now is a form of grief," she explained. "You're mourning the family relationship you deserved but never had. It's a necessary process to move forward." "I just don't understand why," I said, tears welling up. "Why couldn't they love us equally? Some parents create hierarchies among their children based on which child best fulfills their own needs and expectations," Dr. Mitchell explained. "It rarely has anything to do with the actual qualities or worth of the children themselves. Your brother aligned with their vision for success and status. You chose a different path, one that's incredibly valuable and meaningful, but not the one they valued. So there was never anything I could have done to be good enough." "The problem was never that you weren't good enough, Jessica. The problem was that they couldn't see your unique value because they were too fixated on their narrow definition of success." This framework helped me understand why no achievement of mine had ever seemed to satisfy them. I wasn't being measured against any objective standard of success. I was being measured against Tyler, and specifically, against Tyler's ability to fulfill my parents' vicarious needs and social aspirations. With this clarity came a difficult question. What kind of relationship, if any, could I have with my parents moving forward? 3 days after receiving the invoice, I still hadn't responded to my parents. My father sent a follow-up email asking for confirmation of payment, while my mother left a voicemail saying she didn't understand why I was being difficult about a simple family matter. Each communication increased my anxiety until I found myself having panic attacks before shifts at the hospital. After nearly administering the wrong medication to a patient, catching myself at the last moment, I knew I had to address the situation definitively. I spent an entire evening drafting different responses with Nathan's help. My first attempts were emotional and accusatory, releasing years of pent-up hurt and resentment. While cathartic to write, we both agreed these wouldn't be productive. "The goal isn't to hurt them back," Nathan reminded me. "It's to establish boundaries and protect yourself." After multiple revisions, we crafted a response that was firm but dignified. "Dear Mom and Dad, I've received the invoice for Tyler's vacation. I will not be contributing financially to this trip for several reasons. 1. I was not consulted about this family gift before commitments were made. 2. My nursing salary does not allow for unexpected expenses of this magnitude. 3. Most importantly, it seems inconsistent to exclude me from family Christmas while simultaneously expecting me to finance family gifts. This situation has prompted me to reflect on our relationship more broadly. The pattern of different treatment between Tyler and myself has been evident throughout our lives, from educational support to holiday inclusions. While I've tried to understand and accommodate these differences, the recent Christmas exclusion followed by this financial demand has made it clear that boundaries are necessary. I need some time and space to process these events. Please respect this by not contacting me for the next few weeks. I'll reach out when I'm ready to discuss our relationship moving forward. Jessica. I read the email 10 times before finally pressing send, my hands shaking but my resolve firm. Nathan hugged me tightly afterward, proud of my courage but concerned about the potential fallout. We didn't have to wait long. Within hours, my phone exploded with notifications. My father responded first with a terse email. Your response is immature and disappointing. This behavior only confirms our concerns about your development as an adult. When you're ready to fulfill your family obligations without dramatics, we'll be here. My mother's text was more emotionally manipulative. Jessica, I'm heartbroken that you would interpret our actions this way. Tyler has sacrificed so much for his career and children. Your selfishness is causing your father tremendous stress. Is that what you want? Most surprising was a call from Tyler himself, the first time he'd reached out directly in months. What's going on with you? He demanded when I answered. Mom's upset, Dad's furious, and apparently you're refusing to chip in for the vacation they're generously giving us. Did you know they excluded me from Christmas dinner? I countered. They said you had other plans, Tyler replied, sounding genuinely confused. And what does that have to do with the vacation anyway? I explained the full situation, how I discovered my exclusion from Christmas through social media, the dismissive response from our parents, and then the invoice arriving without warning or consultation. That doesn't sound right, Tyler said, his certainty wavering. There must be some misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, Tyler. They literally told me I wasn't invited because your family needed the space at the table. Well, our dining room is small. He began, then trailed off, seemingly hearing how ridiculous the excuse sounded. Tyler, when was the last time you saw Mom and Dad treat us equally? Be honest. His long pause told me everything. They're just proud of what I've accomplished, he finally said defensively. That doesn't mean they love you less. They have a funny way of showing love, then, I replied. Look, I'm not blaming you for their behavior, but I need you to understand that I'm not being selfish or dramatic. I'm finally standing up for myself after years of being treated as less important. You're still my sister, Tyler said, his tone softening slightly. I don't want family drama. Neither do I. But I can't keep pretending everything is fine when it isn't. After hanging up, I felt a strange sense of peace. For the first time, I'd spoken my truth without apologizing for it or trying to minimize my feelings. That peace was short-lived. By the next day, the conflict had expanded beyond my immediate family. My parents had apparently shared their version of events with extended family members and their social circle. My aunt and uncle sent concerned messages asking why I was causing problems. My mother's friends, women who had known me since childhood, sent awkward texts suggesting I should value family harmony and respect my parents' wishes. Even my Facebook feed became a battleground, with subtle posts from my mother about ungrateful children receiving dozens of sympathetic comments from her friends. She never mentioned me by name, but the timing and content made it clear who she was referring to. The public nature of the conflict increased my anxiety exponentially. I began having trouble sleeping, lost my appetite, and found myself dreading checking my phone or email. Nathan found me crying in the bathroom before work one morning, physically ill from the stress. This isn't sustainable, he said gently, holding my hair back as I retched into the toilet. You need to create some distance for your own health. That evening, we set up email filters to send my parents' messages to a separate folder I could check when emotionally prepared. I blocked their numbers on my phone, allowing voicemails but preventing the constant anxiety of seeing their calls and texts. I temporarily deactivated my social media accounts to avoid the passive-aggressive posts and family gossip. These practical steps provided immediate relief, but the emotional work was just beginning. In therapy, Dr. Mitchell helped me understand that I was grieving the loss of the family relationship I had always hoped for but never truly had. Setting boundaries isn't about punishing your parents, she explained. It's about protecting yourself from a dynamic that's causing you harm. It's an act of self-care, not retaliation. What if they never change? I asked, voicing my deepest fear. What if this permanent estrangement is the only option? That's a possibility you may need to accept, Dr. Mitchell acknowledged. But remember, you're not responsible for their responses to your boundaries. You're only responsible for your own well-being. Nathan suggested that a complete break from my family might be necessary, at least temporarily. Give yourself permission to focus on people who value you, he said. Your chosen family, me, Rachel, your colleagues who appreciate you. It was the hardest decision I'd ever made, but ultimately the only healthy one. I needed to step back from my family of origin and focus on healing. 6 months passed since I'd sent that boundary-setting email to my parents. 6 months of rebuilding my sense of self-worth outside the distorted mirror of their expectations. 6 months of learning that family isn't defined by DNA, but by genuine care and mutual respect. The transformation in my life was remarkable. Without the constant anxiety of trying to earn my parents' approval, I found myself thriving professionally. I applied for and received a promotion to pediatric ICU clinical coordinator, a leadership role I might not have pursued before, always hearing my mother's voice in my head saying I wasn't management material. My relationship with Nathan deepened as we planned our future together without the shadow of my family's judgment. We were discussing marriage and starting our own family, on our terms and timeline. Most importantly, I developed a surrogate family of friends and colleagues who celebrated my successes and supported me through challenges. Rachel and her husband included me in their family gatherings. My coworkers at the hospital became close friends, organizing weekend hikes and monthly dinner parties where everyone's contributions were equally valued. Last Christmas, the one I'd been excluded from, ended up being unexpectedly meaningful. Nathan's family welcomed me with genuine warmth, his mother insisting I help her in the kitchen not as an obligation but as a way to share family recipes and stories. His father asked thoughtful questions about my nursing career, listening attentively to my answers without comparing me to anyone else. His siblings included me in inside jokes and family traditions without making me feel like an outsider. This is how family is supposed to feel, I whispered to Nathan as we drove home that night. You deserve this, he replied simply. You always have. In January, I received a handwritten letter from Aunt Linda that brought me to tears. Dear Jessica, I've wanted to reach out since the Christmas situation but needed to be careful due to Margaret's tendency to monitor my communications with you. I want you to know that I recognize the courage it took to stand up for yourself. The way you've been treated all these years hasn't been fair or right. What you may not know is that I experienced something similar with Margaret growing up. Our parents always favored her, the prettier, more socially adept daughter who married well and maintained appearances. I spent years trying to prove my worth before finally accepting that their approval wasn't necessary for my happiness. You are an extraordinary young woman who has built a meaningful life helping others. I'm prouder of you than I can express, and am here for you whenever you need me. With love, Aunt Linda. Her validation and perspective helped me see that the pattern extended beyond my generation. My mother had been the golden child in her family and was simply perpetuating what she knew. By March, my mother made her first attempt at contact, a text message as if nothing had happened. Jessica, saw an article about pediatric nursing that made me think of you. Hope you're doing well. No acknowledgement of the Christmas exclusion, the invoice, or my request for space. Just a casual attempt to rug sweep the entire situation. I didn't respond immediately, discussing it first with Dr. Mitchell. This is typical of people who don't want to acknowledge wrongdoing, she explained. They try to re-establish contact on superficial terms, hoping you'll be so eager for reconciliation that you'll overlook the unresolved issues. So what should I do? I asked. What do you want from a relationship with your parents moving forward? She countered. Is surface-level contact enough? Or do you need acknowledgement and change? After careful consideration, I responded to my mother with boundaries firmly in place. Thank you for reaching out. I'm doing well in my new role as clinical coordinator. I'm open to rebuilding our relationship, but that would require acknowledging and discussing the patterns that led to our estrangement, including the Christmas exclusion and Invoice incident. I'm available to have that conversation when you're ready. She never replied. My father made a similar attempt in April, sending an email about a financial planning article that might be useful for your career stage. Again, no mention of our conflict or any recognition of wrongdoing. I sent a similar boundary-maintaining response and received no reply. Tyler reached out occasionally with awkward attempts at normalcy, sharing photos of his children or asking generic questions about my work. I maintained polite but distant communication, unwilling to be pulled back into the family dynamic without fundamental changes. Therapy helped me accept that reconciliation might never happen on the terms I deserved. My parents might never acknowledge the favoritism or apologize for their hurtful actions. They might never see me as equal to Tyler or value my life choices. And I had to be okay with that possibility. Your healing can't depend on their recognition, Dr. Mitchell reminded me. It has to come from within you. The most powerful realization was that I no longer needed their approval to feel worthy. The little girl who had desperately tried to earn her parents' love had grown into a woman who understood her intrinsic value. My worth wasn't determined by my parents' ability to see it, but by the life I'd built, the people I'd helped, and the love I both gave and received. By summer, I had established a new tradition with Nathan and our closest friends, monthly family dinners, where everyone contributed a dish and shared stories around our dining table. These gatherings held more warmth and genuine connection than any Walker family Christmas I could remember. Sometimes the family you choose is more nurturing than the family you're born into, Rachel observed during one such dinner. And that's okay. She was right. I'd spent years trying to earn a place at my parents' table, only to discover that I deserved to sit at the head of my own. The invoice for $6,100, that catalyst for so much pain and eventual growth, remained unpaid. I'd framed it and hung it in my home office as a reminder of my journey and the boundaries I'd finally established. Beneath it, I placed a small plaque with words that had become my mantra: your worth is not determined by others' ability to see it. If you've ever felt like the forgotten child, the family disappointment, or the one who never quite measured up, know that you're not alone. Your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is create boundaries with the people who should have loved us best, but didn't know how. Have you ever had to establish boundaries with family members? What helped you through that process? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone. Thank you for being part of my chosen family today. And remember, sometimes the greatest act of love is learning to love yourself first.